big round of applause for her New York energy, downtown New York. Let's go. Okay, first I'm gonna quickly ground us because everyone's exhausted and it is the morning. Hi, welcome. Also, like, people can sit in this couch too, instead of standing. Yeah. Okay, so everyone just close your eyes for a second. I know everyone's has their phones out and close your eyes. Get your both feet planted in the ground, both feet. Root your booty back into your chair and take a deep breath in through your nose here. And hold it at the top for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let it out with a deep sigh out of your mouth. Here we go for 6 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Deep inhale through your nose. Here we go. Hold it at the top for 4. Let it out with a deep exhale out of your mouth. Here we go. Last inhale through your nose. Here we go. Hold it at the top and take a sip of air through your mouth and hold it. And let it out with an audible exhale out of your mouth. Here we go. Loudest one yet. Amazing. Thank you. So welcome, everyone. What was that, Faith? Oh, my God. Thank you. You know what's so funny is it's obviously New York Climate Week. We are talking about all these theories about nature and climate and having a sustainable future. We're locked in these concrete buildings. We're running around. We're in these cars. We're having all these formal business meetings. And then it's like, wait, but we're talking about sustainability and then we're not being sustainable with our own energies. It's funny, right? So breath, it's just like, it's so accessible. So welcome to the first ever STEWARD Live debate. Woo! Why? Yeah, thank you. Why are we having a debate? Because right now we live in quite a polarized society. We're in the US. We don't need to get into it. And respectful, critical thought discussion, it helps us process world events. There's studies that show us, it helps us understand what's happening. It helps us have conversations that move us forward. But right now we're so locked into our silos. We're so locked into a binary space. And climate is one of the most nuanced spaces there is, but it often is depicted as quite binary. So right now we're going to deep dive into the nuance of this topic of if sustainability and affordability, if they're complementary or they're contradictory. So some ground rules for the audience. We encourage audience participation. If you agree with what the speaker is saying, you could snap. Give me a snap. Let me see you snap. Snap, snap, snap. Great. And there will also be a moment where we open up the floor and just stand up, say your name, and ask your questions. So this is an interactive moment where if you don't agree, you could stand up, say your name, and then ask a question directly to the speaker. So disagreement is totally fine. It's encouraged, but the non-negotiable is just having respect and civility for everyone. Okay, cool? All right, cool. We're gonna get into it. So I'm gonna ask each speaker to make an opening statement, and they're gonna motion for or against that sustainability and affordability is complementary. So we're gonna first start off with the one and only Adam Met. So
Aww.
Adam, get up here, stand up here.
Oh, we're getting
up, we're getting into it. So Adam, just really quickly, Adam, he's gonna be embarrassed that I'm saying all this. Adam.
I'll stand over here because this is how far the mic reaches.
Adam, the first thing he did when he came in here was he checked out if that piano was legit or not. He opened it up and he was like, okay. He is a renowned musician.
Come on. Hate this introduction.
Oh, we're getting into it. He's an adjunct professor at Columbia, and he recently just published, and I'll let you take it away from here, what you recently just published and launched this week. Okay,
sure.
And let us know if you're for the motion or against.
Okay.
Take it away.
Does that count into my 2 minutes, though?
No!
Okay. So I'm Adam. I'm a musician by night, and by day I work in climate policy. I teach it at Columbia. I worked on the Inflation Reduction Act, and I do a lot of climate policy for governments around the world. I run an organization that does creative climate incubation, and we've done things in the energy space, waste, water, movement building, And we just released this thing called the Neo-Industrial Revolution, which basically makes the argument that we had the kind of first era of the climate movement. When I was a student, I studied with this guy named Wally Broker. And if you don't know who he is, he coined the term global warming for the scientific community. Then we had the era of Greta and the Green New Deal, very much based around fear and anger and movement building. It's time for a third era of the movement, and this is not in response to Trump. This was actually in response to post-IRA, post-Inflation Reduction Act. I spent a lot of time on the road with the Harris campaign. Nobody cares about climate change. Nobody cares about 1.5 degrees. Nobody gives a shit about environmental justice. That might be a spicy thing to hear, but nobody cares about those words. They care about the concepts. They care about the ideas, but 1.5 degrees and climate change is too far away and too big and too existential. They care about how they're going to get their kids to and from school, the food that they're going to put on their plate, how they're going to power their homes, the cost of everything, their jobs. That's what people care about. So the Neo-Industrial Revolution does two things. It creates a new lexicon for how we approach the climate movement as a whole. And we look at everything from activists to grassroots organizations to big greens, universities, the culture sector, companies, philanthropy and finance, state governments, local governments, the federal government. And it is a philosophy of how we should be building this next era of the climate movement. And the second piece of what it does is completely reframes everything around collective action and removing responsibility from individual action. We all know, because we are participating in Climate Week, about the history of the idea of the carbon footprint, right? Coined by BP, a lot of marketing dollars put into it. Collective action is where we need to be moving. And collective action is around civic and political participation, and I'll talk about that more. But the question is, are they counterintuitive to each other, right? Sustainability and affordability. And my issue is with the question itself, because the concept of sustainability is not a concept we should be using moving forward in 2025. That's where I will leave it.
Spicy, are we snapping? Spicy. All right, now we have Hawa. Hawa is, get up there. Don't be shy. Come on, Hawa. Don't look at me like that. Guys, we are in the presence of just joy and glory. She just published her book as well. What is your book called?
My second book, Setting a Place for Us, just came out. It's about food and what happens to people when they have to run from home. It's about what happens when the question is, what do you put on the dinner table? And it's about our similarities and not our differences.
Yes, and no big deal. She's a James Beard winning chef, like NBD. Hawa, take it away.
Okay, well, like Adam, I think we need to stop asking, is something sustainable? And we need to start building systems that are sustainable. I put my notes on paper because I didn't want to mince my words today. And so when we're talking about sustainability and affordability, people are often imagining that they're opposites, like choosing between what's good for the planet and what's good for our wallets, right? Sustainability is about making the most of what we have, reducing waste, and thinking about long-term. Affordability is about stretching our resources. How do we do that? We need to return back to what we know works, right? Traditional practices like cooking from scratch, mending clothes, or sharing resources. They have displaced us from one another. And who does that benefit? Not us, right? And so when I say this, what I mean is, let's go back to the wisdoms of our mothers, our grandmothers, who knew how to use every part of an ingredient and repurpose what they had before buying new. The challenge is not to rethink. The challenge now is rethinking the system so affordability isn't at odds with doing what's good. When policies, communities, and businesses prioritize access, sustainability becomes not just ethical choice, but the most economical one. Rather than contradictory, they are intertwined.
Woo, all right. Snaps for a while. Okay, and now we have Karen, who, again, we needed to get her out of Midtown. Karen is the Chief Sustainability Officer at Inca Group, IKEA. And Karen, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for getting me out of Midtown. Feel like just saying +1, which is, we don't do the snap in our meetings, we say +1, which is supposed to avoid us just repeating what someone has just said to us. But fantastic to be here. Thank you for coming. Amazing space as well. I love vintage furniture, so I was super excited when I came in here. I work for IKEA. We are the world's largest furniture retailer. I am for the motion. For me, they absolutely must go hand in hand. My background is a designer, textile design, and so also for me it's like the holistic vision of getting things right from the start with the design process, which will really help then designing to a price point, which is what we do at IKEA, but also bringing in what we call democratic design, which is quality, form, function, sustainability, all for great value and a great low price. But to give you a little bit of historical context for IKEA, hopefully most of you know it. We do have stores here around the US. It's Swedish. It started over 80 years ago in a very poor part of Sweden, where it was very hard to make a living. You had to collaborate. There were a lot of farmers trying to eke a living out of very poor quality land, and you had to come together, and you were really, really careful with your resources. And Ingvar Kamprad, our founder, lived on a farm, had very, very little money, and he started his business when he was 14. So he's a real, true entrepreneur, and he started with mail order, basically buying and selling and being a trader of small things, and then he went into furniture. And his vision with furniture, and the reason why I am for the motion, because it's so ingrained in our company culture and everything we do, is that why should good, great design only be for the few that can afford it? It's not a luxury. And then we now fast forward to now, the great design includes sustainable design. And we know that the world can only be sustainable when everybody can afford it. So we do a lot in our own backyard. Of course, we are a large corporation with a big climate footprint around the world, and we take that seriously. So we are aligned with the Paris Agreement, and we need to halve our emissions by 2030, and we're around 30% now, whilst also growing our revenue 24%. So we also see that sustainability is good business sense as well. So not only is it right for the planet and right for our consumers, but it also makes good business sense. And then as part of that, getting it down to halving our emissions by 2030, a huge chunk of that is what we offer to our customers. So affordability, sustainability must go hand in hand. We never charge more for sustainable products. And I know many other brands do. And that's a conscious decision we have taken, that people should not have to pay more when they want to buy sustainable products. And we're on a mission to switch all of our materials to either be renewable or recycled. We're sitting at 56% renewable and 17% recycled. So we still have a long way to go. And then we're doing all sorts of things like spare parts, second-hand tests, buyback campaigns. We will buy back your IKEA furniture, sell it on to someone else at a truly affordable price for the many. So hopefully you get the idea that I'm very for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, Olivia. Who's here has heard of the legendary New York brand Dolphinette? Anyone? Yes. Whoop, whoop. So Olivia is the founder and creative director behind Dolphinette. Olivia, come on, stand up. Get up there. Get up there. Oh, yes, Mike. Olivia's creations have been shown at the Metropolitan Museum. It's been seen on red carpets all over the world. She just had her New York Fashion Week show. Olivia, take it away.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm the founder of a women's wear brand called Dolphinette. I feel like Sophia maybe brought me here to be against the motion because, but I'm not. I feel that to be honest, I'm thinking about this right now, trying to cultivate an opinion. I think that I agree with everybody before me in that I think that what I do is not for the masses. I think it can be for the masses in the terms, in like a more dispersed way, but I'm just a girl and I've decided to be just a girl. And I think that can always change in the future. But right now, the idea with my business and with my brand is that we are doing the most with what we can. We, I think, are the only brand at any fashion week that uses at least 50% upcycled materials in all of our collections, all of our runway collections. So I think that that is for people who are interested in art and fashion and also in food because of kind of the mix of aesthetically what we do. It's something that I think can reach people through their Pinterest board, through visuals. It's not necessarily, I'm not trying to get everybody in the same like tiny kayak with me to like give me their money. And I love IKEA. I think that also like IKEA really holds its value on the secondhand marketplace. Like when you go on Facebook Marketplace, the IKEA thing that you bought for $50 is now $45 after 4 years of use. That's crazy. And I think that is like, I mean, that's a true testament to the fact that for a company like IKEA, sustainability and affordability do go hand in hand. For me, no, that's not the fact because we don't have the level of distribution at this time to kind of, I think when you want sustainability to be affordable at scale, you need something, I mean, you need a certain amount of demand and you need a certain amount of manpower. And I think that the world should have access to that. I don't know that I personally am bringing that access, but I also agree with what Adam and Hawa said very much in terms of it not being necessarily one or the other. I think that sustainability, if a brand like mine, a company like mine, were to have the ability to become more affordable, it needs to come from a more structural change.
Woo. All right, snaps. Yes, thank you, Olivia. So wait, really fast, Olivia, because I know you agree with IKEA, but in fashion,
yes, in fashion,
there's a cost threshold.
Yeah, there's some really bad, ugly, weird fashion for really cheap, but there's also the thrift store.
Okay, so what is the cost threshold that we're starting? You can say it if you want.
Oh, okay.
Only if you want. Or
I
you
do.
can roam the audience, like.
With my
But what is
tethered cord.
Yes.
I'll just rip it.
Do we need to accept that there's a cost threshold for smaller independent brands when it comes to fashion? Because the average cotton t-shirt is going to be 2 to 3 times more than just a normal t-shirt.
I think that right now, yes, and I also think that that's what small brands want you to believe because we as small brands don't have access necessarily to the infrastructure in order to make it more affordable. I mean, if I knew how, I would love to make it more affordable and have a bajillion customers. I'd be super happy and I'd be really rich. But that's not currently the case, and I think most small brands would like you to believe, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with small brands, but I think that most small brands would like you to believe that it is one or the other, but if you think long term, it can't always be one or the other. I think that as a small brand right now who has no hand in, I think, the governance of sustainability infrastructures for consumers, the best thing you can do is kind of lead by example and like not be, I personally don't really care about things like copycats really, because the idea is that you lead by example, and that's like a bit of a service that you can provide. Although I don't like a Shein copy, or like yeah, but also because it's just ugly. I don't like ugly things. So does that
Do that, but yeah, I don't like it.
Okay, yes, they're
Nobody
bastardizing
here
your
likes
designs.
ugly
Adam, you
Yeah.
have something to say. Go.
So, for the purposes of this conversation, I'd love to just jump in and take the opposite approach, because in the last couple of days, I've been on a ton of panels where I vehemently disagreed with like the head of the World Food Program. But I'm on a panel and I can't like do the thing, but I feel like we're in a space where
Do the thing.
Is it a safe space? Okay, you know that I, support this concept, but I think for the purposes of having like a really deep discussion
Just
about
do
this.
the thing.
Okay, great. So at the moment, no. The answer is no. It's not affordable to be sustainable. It's absolutely not. If you're talking about people in this room, maybe, but if you're talking about broader in the rest of the world and in the large majority of the United States, it is absolutely not affordable to be sustainable. These people are, the food that they're getting that is sitting on their plate is whatever is the most convenient thing for them. It is the thing that they can pick up on the way home. A lot of the times it's fast food. The fashion that they're getting is the thing that's the closest to their house. It's the thing that is the most affordable. So by definition of what their life looks like, it is therefore not sustainable. So I completely agree that the systems change is what we need. But what does that look like? So IKEA is a brand that has built it into their sustainability into your system, you said, for 80 years. We do not. What'd you say?
It wasn't quick.
It wasn't quick, exactly. It wasn't quick. So what happens when you don't have 80 years to try and transform a system? We're talking about the fashion industry. We're talking about the food industry. We're also talking about concrete and steel. We're talking about all of these different kinds of things that we're making and building and growing. This system can't be built overnight. So what if we want to try and attack this problem? And I'm curious for the audience and the other people on stage, what are the things that we're looking at in order to try and put cracks in the system that has been so cemented into our society? And I'll start with one or two things just to kick it off. So at the hyper-local level, there are a lot of city and state-based policies that are starting to move the system in that direction. And I'll give you an example of one. In San Antonio, Texas, one of the reddest states in the country, San Antonio, they have an amazing reuse policy of materials based around construction. So when somebody is demolishing a building, first they have to go through and figure out all of the materials that they can save. These materials are then cataloged, kept in warehouses around the city. So when an architect is designing something new and a contractor is building something new, they have to go to these warehouses first in order to use those materials first, right? Amazing policy idea. It's great. It works really well in San Antonio. Part of the stuff we're doing at Planet Reimagined is taking these hyperlocal policies, figuring out how to apply them in a lot of other cities using AI and a bunch of other stuff. Something like that is a systemic change that's happening at the policy level that creates incentives for these things to change. What are some other things that we can think of in the food space, in the fashion space, where we can use policy and movement building and even tax incentives to create this kind of systemic change? Sorry, I just co-opted.
No, please. Yeah, Hua. And
Yeah, thank you for that question, and I think it's really important that we all build systems that serve the places we live in. So I would suggest investing in regional food systems, supporting small farmers, shifting away from subsidies, and from industrial ag, which is like big grocery stores. The cost would naturally come down if we supported CSAs, which is a community-sourced ag. We have them all over Brooklyn. I'm sure they're all over New York. I only am aware of the ones in my neighborhood. But if you were to shop local, if you were, just the same way that we shop at Trader Joe's, we shop at Whole Foods, if we were to reach for community-sourced foods and systems, then the cost would come down, and then we wouldn't be sitting here having this hypothetical conversation about sustainability.
Yeah, because organic produce is 50% more than conventional produce. But you're saying if we shop locally?
If we shop locally, the price comes down. And we take away the power from, when I think about what we really need to reframe is the idea of what is good food and who is it for, right? Where did we get this idea of organic from? Which system told us that that's what it was? And what was it 40 years ago?
Yes. Yes, please, Karen.
So I would like to say yes and no, or yes but, perhaps. Because I can definitely see both what Adam and Howard have said is of course absolutely true. So a big sort of recognition of that and agreement with that. But I would also say, and of course maybe you expect me to say it because I work for a large organization, but we can use our economies of scale to drive price down and drive societal changes and industry-wide changes. So we reach hundreds of millions of customers a year. So they all now buy LED bulbs from us. It's 10 years since the Paris Agreement. It's also 10 years since we launched our LED bulbs. We might take that for granted in the Western world. It's still not a given in all countries of the world that they have access to that. So not only does that save a lot of energy and therefore CO2, it also makes your energy bill a lot less. So the customer saves money. We switched to only being able to buy rechargeable batteries from IKEA. You cannot buy a normal one, a disposable battery from IKEA. And more recently, we've been on a real plant-based food movement. Everybody knows us for our furniture, of course, but we also are one of the world's biggest restaurants. And 700 million meals served in our restaurants last year. Wow. And we're on a mission to make 50% of the offer plant-based, and we're sitting in the high 30s, in some countries in the low 40% now already. And they're countries which are usually very meat-eating countries, like Germany, South Korea, and Japan, and so on, where they've really embraced it. And one of the things we've done as well with the plant-based food offer, so we have a plant version of the famous meatball. We have plant dogs, we have plant-based yogurts and ice cream and all sorts of lovely goodies, as well as, of course, salad and vegetables, normal plants. But we have made the plant-based offer a lower price than the meat-based alternative. Now, we couldn't do that if we didn't have our size and scale. And then we can still make it affordable for the customer, but profitable for us, because we are a business, therefore, we need to make profit. And then just on that, from a systems thinking point of view, it's good to know with IKEA as well, we don't have shareholders breathing down our neck for quarterly returns. We're set up as a foundation. So our money either gets reinvested back into the business to reach more of the many people around the world and give them a better everyday life, which is our vision, or it goes to the IKEA Foundation for philanthropy. So for us, it's very important that the whole business setup, how can we lead industry? And many of our suppliers have been suppliers for decades. It's really hard to be an IKEA supplier. We make them jump through hoops from integrity of how they treat their workforce, how they treat the environment around, effluent treatment plants, and all sorts of things, a system called iWay, the IKEA way. And the average length of time for most of our suppliers is 11 years, but some of them are 30, 40 years. So that true partnership and driving industry-wide change is possible because we have those long-term partnerships and we have the size and scale.
So Karen, IKEA is a super high-growth company. So how does IKEA reconcile economic growth, continue economic growth with circular systems?
We're actually not a super high growth company. Of course, we would like to grow because we're a business, not a charity. The charitable arm is the foundation. So we want to be profitable. And we also, because we have this vision to reach, and give a better everyday life to the many people, we would like to reach more of the many people. In many of our markets, we still have a relatively small market share, single-digit market share, actually. And we're only in 30 countries. So we have not touched many parts of the world. So yes, there is growth, and we particularly see growth in what would get called the global south and so on as well, and Asia in particular, where people are coming out of poverty and into middle classes, and they would love to have an IKEA sofa or a table and chairs, the basic things that we all take for granted in the Western world. So we're focused on sustainable long-term growth. We think in generations, not short-term quick returns for investors or shareholders. And the way we need to do that, both to be able to halve our emissions and look after customers and be resource smart, is to become a circular business. So as I said before, we're really striving to get as close to 100% with our circular materials as we can. And that's both renewable and recycled. So a big program around all the materials that we use, whether it's textiles, wood, metal, plastics, everything. The plant-based meals is another example. People don't think of Food being a circular system, but it is very much so. And then how we support suppliers all the way back through the value chain for them to lower their carbon footprint, and regenerative agriculture we're exploring in the supply chain as well. And then on the retail side, which is the area I'm more focused on, it is about those things like being able to repair. Last year we sent out 25 million spare parts to customers free of charge, so that they don't, if they're missing the little bits and bobs that help hold up a Billy bookcase shelf, they don't just think, oh, it has to go to landfill. They can actually get these little replacement spare parts for free. And yeah, we do the buyback scheme, which is growing. That started as a Green Friday campaign, just a one-off, and it was so popular we carried it on. And then now peer-to-peer platforms like Facebook Marketplace we're testing as well, helping people to sell more. As you were saying, IKEA holds its value secondhand. And some markets, it's 20-30% of the furniture sold secondhand is IKEA furniture. So, yeah, we're doing a lot on the circular space. We certainly don't have all the answers yet. And we need policies to change to make it a systems approach, as Adam was saying. Because we can't scale circular because, in some countries, because of policies working against us.
Yeah.
Can I say something super quick?
Yeah.
As you can probably tell, I'm a get shit done kind of person. And I want to take the 5 things that you just talked about and dive into them and explain how, with using them, the first principles behind each of them, then they can be applied in millions of other places around the world. So the first one is LED bulbs. LED bulbs worked because people understood that they would last a lot longer, and ultimately in the long run they would be a lot cheaper, right? So it wasn't you only giving people one option, it was that they understood that, and that was a narrative change piece, which is the thing that you were talking about. So that's key. That's number 1. Number 2 that you mentioned is batteries. Batteries, you don't give people any other option.
Yes.
That is another, that's another way of thinking about it when you're in the commercial space, not giving people any other option than being sustainable. The third thing is the plant-based food. You made that as a cheaper option. You're still giving people a choice. It's still individual choice, but it gives people the option, and this one is cheaper for them. The fourth one is that you don't have shareholders. That is absolutely incredible, and I'm sure every company around the world is jealous that they don't have shareholders, even though they're probably happy that they made a lot of money from being on a public market, whatever. That is really key. So I think you setting an example for other private companies is really good, and there are other ones that I can think of like Mars and things like that have done a lot around sustainability and around human rights because they can. And the fifth piece of it is supply chains. Supply chains, and you do this, and Apple does this, and a lot of other companies do this. They essentially bully their supply chains, if we're just kind of being honest, bully their supply chains into actually making real change. And then when they end up working with other companies, then they end up using those same practices. Bully in a positive way, not in a negative way. How about highly encourage, right? Is that a better way? Is that a more corporate-friendly way of putting it?
Yeah, but I would just add, for things like helping our suppliers switch to renewable, 100 million euros worth of grants to our suppliers, so that we've now got 37% of our suppliers on 100% renewable energy. So it's more of a nudging, supporting than a bullying, I would say.
Sure. No, I totally get that. These 5 different concepts that you talked about, at their core, are enough to start to move culture, right? And honestly, that's what we're all trying to get at with this conversation, is that we're not trying to get people to buy something or engage in something because it's sustainable. We ultimately want to move the underlying culture behind it. And when you hit those 5 different concepts, then you are able to move culture, and people see IKEA as a brand as sustainable. It's not, I'm going to IKEA because it's sustainable, but I'm going to IKEA because it's easy, it's in my life, it's great quality, and it also happens to be sustainable.
Exactly.
Wait, okay, and just to, thank you, snaps, Adam, and just to do the thing, if, like, let's say IKEA supplies millions around the world, but when you're at that scale, that means you need resources, you need materials, so what does that mean for the cost of the materials that we're getting from nature? Growth in forest systems, and you need wood to build furniture. Like, what does that cost look like?
Yeah, and of course we take resource scarcity seriously. If you think of it from a sustainability point of view and a sort of looking after the planet, sort of the altruistic and human sort of integrity point of view, it makes good sense. We have to look after our natural resources. But secondly, it also makes good business sense. You know, IKEA's not going to exist if we start to run out of materials. So even if you take the hard-nosed finance approach, then you still need to look after resources. So again, that's why the really big agenda around the circular materials comes in. And I said we were 56% renewable before, but even with renewable products, you can recycle many of those. I don't know if you've seen in fashion and textiles, I used to be a textile designer years ago, but now you can recycle cashmere. You can buy beautiful jumpers that are 100% recycled cashmere, recycle wool, recycle cotton, recycle wood, even recycle down and feathers if you like down jackets when it's freezing cold. So you can, now there's enough down and feathers in supply for the outdoor industry to just keep recycling that. So you don't need to get new products. So we've got a huge focus on even when the product is renewable and you can grow more, to make sure that every recycling opportunity we're getting after. So we use a lot of wood, and we want to get to 1/3 of our wood supply being made of recycled wood by 2030, and we're sitting around 17% now. And then, recycled cotton we use a lot for our bedding, textiles, rugs, and recycled plastics as well. So big agenda. That's how we do it, because if you create closed circular loops, you don't need to keep extracting more new materials. But that does require policy change and systems change, as Adam was saying as well. Even with our size and scale, we can't do it alone. We need industries to come together. We've got an investment arm. We've got a 1 billion portfolio for recycling. And we've got Retour Matras, which is our mattress recycling in the Netherlands. 1 million mattresses a year saved from landfill just in the Netherlands. And we want to scale that up and go all over Europe. But individual countries in Europe, probably the same as states here, subnational level, have different regulations where you can't transport the recycled material between countries. And you also have countries where it's cheaper for landfill and incineration, which I think in this day and age is a crime, actually. So we need to gang together to really nudge policymakers to change and make it easier to have circular economies existing.
So this is our last question for the group before we go into some audience participation. We've talked about, there is, even if IKEA does its part and fashion companies does its part and food companies does its part, there's still going to be this, right now in this day and age, consume. There's just still this overconsumption psychological pattern where people want fast fashion, they want fast furniture, and if the demand is there, the company's gonna give it to them. And so what is the psychological, ideological change that we need to have both internally and externally, both B2B and B2C? I'm asking this to the entire panel.
I'll just go back to what Adam said. In order for the shift to happen, it first of all needs to start at the base, which is culturally, right? And I do believe that a little bit of the shifting will come when we shame one another in the amount of things we're consuming and producing and,
Bullying.
Right. We need to bring shame back, right? And so shopping seasonally is crazy when you already have all those things in your, seasonally fashion-wise, right? But then food, you want to shop seasonally. You want to shop proximity. You want to shop with your local CSA. And so making those small shifts, I think culturally need to happen, and they need to be at the B2B, business to business. It needs to be person to person. What are you, how are you cooking your beets this fall? What root vegetables did you get? That kind of conversation, right? Who are you supporting? What farmer are you sourcing your vegetables from this season? Do they have a sign-up sheet? Can I get in on that? That kind of thing. Buying collectively, right? If there's a farmer that produces eggs, buying collectively as a group, putting together 5 people and doing that, right? And so I think it needs to start person to person before we can even talk about B2B.
Okay, just really fast, because it's easier said than done to shame a friend. Can you guys just role play? You're going to be the shamer and you're going to be the person that overconsumes. Okay, ready? Go.
Hey. I'm overconsuming.
Hey, Adam, I see that you have on a new Prada shirt. I thought you already had 10 of those.
I actually have 12. That's not shaving?
Oh, see, I'm bad at it.
Wait,
Wow,
I can shame.
12.
Shame him. I can shame him for that. Wait, but this is, you bought the Prada shirt? Are we still with that?
You can do whatever. You can shame me for anything. It's fine. Shame me for anything.
But you're such a messy eater. You always stain them.
It's true. And then I just throw them away when they get stained.
You're like Justin Bieber with his Calvin Klein underwear. Do you want to be like Justin Bieber?
Kind of.
Not in the sense that he has a beautiful wife and a cute kid. But think about it. There's paparazzi outside his door almost every single day.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
And everybody judges him online.
It's true. Everyone does judge him online.
And do you want to be messy Adam?
I guess not. Wow, you fully convinced me. I'm never going to buy from Prada again.
All right, what else do we need to do to ideologically, Olivia?
I think that I feel like people will always be looking for things that are aspirational. And I think we should give them, I mean, yes, like Adam was saying before, restrict choice is always nice. I think, like when you go to a diner and there's 100, more than 100 usually, things on the menu, versus when you go to like a farm to table type seasonal menu restaurant and there's like 6 things on the menu. You can just get the 6 things, and it honestly makes your life easier than like wondering how old the flour is from this diner in like the boonies. And I feel like in a similar sense, it's important to give people options that are sustainable and aspirational. And that doesn't just come from having, like, for example, Prada has their re-nylon shirts that Adam is consuming at a shirt a minute.
Yes.
But I feel like having suggestions for people that they can integrate, that feel aspirational, that make them want to dive back into, in my case, like their own closet or their own whatever. Whatever aesthetically is interesting to them and aligned with them, anything that makes them want to revisit that is something that we should be pushing culturally and artistically, because yes, I 100%, something like Big Egg, is that a thing? Yeah. The styrofoam cartons really irk me. I just really don't like them. I think they're so ugly and bad, really bad.
But there are the styrofoam ones where you put them in the water and they dissolve.
Have you ever? I tried to eat it once.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I get your mic. Or maybe it's not long enough. I just sort of building on behaviour. I know it was lots of fun to do the role play, but I also know we've tried in the sustainability movement to make people feel guilty about their decisions, and I'm not sure that's the winning formula. We need to make things desirable, accessible, and affordable, and not blame the consumer. So how do we make it so intuitive that the first choice is the more sustainable choice? And I know for the people who are just trying to put food on the table, pay their energy bills, and be able to get to work or their kids to school, it is not easy at all. And that's where we're hoping, at least with our second-hand offer, that that whole new level. I mean, we feel IKEA is already affordable, but there's a whole new level of affordability for people who are still struggling to afford IKEA new product. And the same with the plant-based foods, to help nudge them towards that. We also work with local communities. We work with Too Good To Go. We've managed to halve our food waste in the last 3 or 4 years, and the first global company to do that, and saving, I think it's about 40 million meals saved now, and some of that goes to local community operations like Too Good To Go, where they can take the food and distribute it elsewhere where it can be better used. And I think there's lots of things we do with social entrepreneurs. Yes, we're large scale, but every IKEA store has the freedom to work on the ground with the local communities and say what matters most here. It might be around homeless people in one part of the world. It might be around domestic violence charities in another. They go in, they provide furniture, they provide labor of love to build the furniture together with the local communities and help to sort of, bring some light and be a good neighbor, basically. So I think there's things like that we can do. We've been testing lots of work on neighborhoods approach and using the size of our stores, the scale of what we do to bring local communities together and don't make them feel guilty. We have community gardens where we have people who've not been able to get into the workforce for various reasons, who can't get jobs, and they're employed by the companies that then provide food for our IKEA locations as well, which is great.
Yeah, a global company being local. Adam, closing thoughts, because I know you have to go.
I think ultimately what we're doing here, and kind of to building off of what you were saying, is that with sustainability as a concept, we're selling a dream, right? We're not really selling the thing itself. We're selling what the world could look like. And ultimately, that's the wrong message, because it's not what the world could look like. It's what your own life could look like. And so it's this mix between, okay, we're asking you to make some changes in your life, but we don't want to put the pressure on you, but we also want to show you what your life could end up looking like and that it could be better. But in our movement, we spend too much time trying to sell a better planet, and 99.9% of people don't care or don't even know what a better planet even looks like. They just care what a better version of their own life is. So I think ultimately we need to think about what it means to sell the dream and how far the dream is away from the person.
Thank you so much. All right, Adam, thank you so much.
Thank
Adam
you.
has to run.
Thank
And thank you. Sorry, everyone. No. Back to Midtown he goes. One song on the piano before you go. No. Come on, just some of the keys don't work. Oh, just give us open it up and give us a ding.
Selling the dream.
Come on.
No music.
Oh. Beautiful. Thank you, Adam. All right, we're just going to do a quick audience participation. Just anyone in the audience want to get in this? Oh, yes. Lovely gentleman in the suit. Love your color palette.
So I just want to follow up on what you said. So I think the key here is we work in capitalism. Yeah. And I think we can shame people. I was home recently.
Wait, sorry. Can I give you a microphone?
Yeah.
Take a seat.
Yeah. What's your name?
James Churchill.
Hey, James. Very dapper,
So
James.
I'm a conservator of buildings.
Oh, wow. Yeah, join the panel. Look, get comfortable.
But no, I think we have to work within the system we have, and that system is capitalism. And I think Adam's absolutely right. I think, so in my sphere, architects have had to move to life cycle cost analysis. And the reason for that is that we can explain to our client base how it's going to save them money in the long run. And it is the only way to encourage people to buy something that is sustainable. And in fact, in architecture now, we're moving away from the concept of sustainability and moving to the concept of regenerative design. And I think this is the discussion we need to be having now is, I think the way to encourage people to be more invested, and there was a recent study in the UK where people were not taking care of their gardens, even though British people love gardens. So what they did was they created gardens from the community where they were creating, using AI, different gardens for people around the community to encourage bees to inhabit their space. And what happened was they started to get wildflowers all throughout these communities, and people were getting more and more interested in regenerative design because they could actually see the impact of regenerative design. Whereas sustainable design is simply encouraging people to buy something out of, their own personal cultural background. And I will shout and scream at my mum for not recycling, and she doesn't care. She just doesn't care because her entire generation has always put things in the trash. And I will remove things from the trash and I will shame her all the time. And unfortunately, I will leave and she will do it again and again. So under the basis of capitalism, I believe if we're going to stay within this system, then we have to encourage people to understand the cost of what they're doing. Yeah. And I think that comes with scale, and IKEA is very fortunate to have scale because small businesses do not. So I think the only way to advance this is to get governments and tax credits and all these things. And just, I'll finalize this here. I met someone who works for Polestar today. EVs are a perfect example of this because not a lot of people know that when the automobile was created in the 1900s, electric automobiles were 40% of the entire supply into 1910, and yet the internal combustion engine won out because it was 3 times cheaper. And it was simply a question of cost. So now we have scale, now we have China building massive amounts of EV. It is finally becoming affordable as a technology. And so people are buying it. And that's why when you visit Europe, you see that there are EVs everywhere. And it takes governments and it takes responsibility from corporates to push the agenda, to get the cost down, to encourage people to buy affordably.
Yeah. Thank you, James. Other questions? Yes, right here. Come on up.
Part of the panel.
Yeah. You could be part of the panel. Sit down. What's your name?
My name's Lindsay. Sorry about that.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hello. I loved what you were saying about CSAs and food systems. And I used to work at Blue Hill, like the farm to table restaurant, so very much on your side. But in New York, where 40% of dollars are spent on food outside of the house, and frozen and pre-prepared meals are the highest growing category at grocery stores, I see CSAs and supporting them as like the 10th step. What do you think the first step is for your average New Yorker?
Oh, that's so interesting that you say that. I have a series on Instagram called There's Food at Home. So I would think that the first place to start is what are you putting on the table every night, right? And then thinking about that long term, like who am I feeding, what am I cooking, and then working your way back from there, right? Like I work in food. I've been very fortunate to be able to work at food at a very high level. I don't eat much. I don't eat outside much because it's expensive and it's not sustainable for my family. And so I'm constantly thinking about what can we make at home. And so I would say the first step may be to just figure out, can you cook at home? Do you enjoy cooking? And how can you learn, how could you learn to make new things for yourself so that the dollar is stretched longer in your own home?
And can I just build on that as well? Because I think food waste is really important as well. And I think about a third of food is wasted. And that has a massive, obviously, financial impact and environmental impact. And it just feels like a crime as well when food just gets thrown in the bin. And often it's in people's homes, but it's also along the whole supply chain. So a big focus on reducing food waste is one of the single things that an individual can do. That and eating less red meat are actually the 2 biggest things you can do as people to have an impact on your carbon footprint. And it saves you money. So it's a no-brainer. And you know what you're putting in your mouth, you know what you're putting in your children's mouths. So I think, again, the education and really sharing, in Europe, the UK has the highest amount of processed food. Not as much as the US, but I don't think it's that far behind the US. And it's really educating people that you can make fast, healthy alternatives at home. And then you save it and you take it in as leftovers the next day and you don't throw it away.
So the practice of cooking at home.
Lovely, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Any other questions? Morgan, come up here. Whoop, whoop, whoop. The strut to the front, sachet.
Okay, sustainability really became a real concept for me when I started to see waste as gauche or unchic in some capacity. It took on a completely different lens. And I'm curious, what was the linchpin that made you kind of shift your perspective on the way we use resources and materials? And if there's anything you found aspirational about it.
Hi, it's good to see you. Well, it's been a long time. I think that for me, it felt like sustainability entered the general cultural conversation when I was at the age where I was first forming opinions of my own about sustainability, and I really latched onto that as the only option. And from there, you build structures for your life and systems for your own life, and how you're going to handle your groceries and how you're going to handle your closet and everything around that. And so I think like Adam was, I'm sorry. Like as you were saying before that your mom, James, that your mom hates recycling, I feel like sometimes it begins as like a generational thing. And I think that, young people have always been the ones to decide on some level what is chic for the moment. And sometimes what is chic for the moment becomes what is chic persistently over time. And I think sustainability is one of those things where not only has it been made into something that's attractive and aspirational for people, but it's something that goes hand in hand with it being a non-negotiable. And I feel like it's something that is now really growing into people's lives as like the world gets filled with more people who are being made aware and brought up alongside this type of ideology.
And then for me, as a child, which is a long time ago, I used to listen and watch Sir David Attenborough, the amazing naturalist and conservationist in the UK. So growing up, wanting to be a vet or a zoologist and looking after and protecting nature. And then I studied textile design at university, and my final year thesis was actually on ecological textiles for home furnishings. And then I worked in fashion, I worked in sportswear, I was with Nike for many years, and I introduced recycled materials into Nike a long time ago now for elite athlete kit for the 2010 Football World Cup. And that was the first time that they used recycled textiles. And it was a lot of debate because they were losing margin points to do it, but we still managed to convince the board to do it, and then from there they've sped up and have a very big recycled material agenda. So I've only done my role as Chief Sustainability Officer for 4 years, but it's been ingrained in me since a child, a love of animals and nature to start with, then studying textiles and saying how can I make a difference through design and getting things right from the start. And then just to build also on what James was saying as well, and also what Adam was saying, I think if we can inspire the young generation and make it the easy choice and the best choice, and not do saving the planet, 1.5 degrees, science, heavy, and everyone's eyes glaze over and fall asleep, but actually talk about right here, right now, what's the positive impact? If you're talking to a CFO or someone building a new IKEA store, what's the business impact? What's the return on investment? Why does it make good business sense? And if you're talking to the everyday person, what is going to make my life better right here, right now? That's what they care about. So the sort of so what, now what question, we have done a disservice, the climate movement, by making it scientific, making it too theoretical, and making it quite long term. People care about the here and now and a better everyday life here and now.
I don't know what's happening. Oh, this is yours. Oh, it's okay. I'll do it on this side. Can you guys hear me? Can y'all hear me? I spent my childhood in a refugee camp just outside of Nairobi. And so for me, sustainability was a way of life. And we didn't use language like sustainability. We used what we had. We understood the power of water, oil, cooking fire. And I grew up with a mother who was a sewer. Until today, my mom still sells dry goods, which she sold in our camp and then later on at the market in Nairobi. And so my whole life has been about using what you have and stretching it and then reusing it. One example I'll give you is, and you just touched on this a little bit, even when I cook or when I write stories, my first cookbook being In Bibi's Kitchen, which is about the 8 African countries that touch the Indian Ocean, from the perspective of grandmothers. Why? Because I felt those stories were being lost in media. Their cooking was not being talked about enough. And then my second book being about displacement and how do you stretch what you have, and what are the commonalities we have. I think sustainability can be many different things. The way that I like to approach it is from the personal. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's shopping my closet, which I do, I rarely buy new clothes. it's a way of life as opposed to it. I've never seen it being any other way than this is how things need to be done.
Did they have a way to describe that, or was it just so ingrained that no one thought about it?
It's just a way of life, and now I just was at the UN the other day and they were saying that the fire we were cooking with in our tents is toxic. And now they're introducing new ways for people who are displaced to cook in terms of open fire. And so just things like that, thinking about the personal, but also thinking about the impact around you. So that's just kind of how I approach it.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Hawa. Okay, just really fast, we're gonna wrap this up. How can we support each of you? For Adam, I'll just speak to him. His Neo-Industrial Revolution paper just launched this week. You can read about it. It's a new lexicon for moving forward in the climate movement. Hawa, how can we support you?
You can follow my Instagram, Hawa Hassan, but you can also support people who don't look like you. Pick one person to shop with, shop from, pick one place to eat, discover new foods, tell stories through food.
Thank you. And your second book as well.
Oh, yeah. Setting a place for us.
You can support me by, go home today and find the ugliest thing you can find in your house and try to do something about it to make yourself like it more.
Ooh, all right. Find the beauty. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This was the first Steward Debate live podcast recording. Thank you so much to our panelists, Olivia, Karen, Hawa, and Adam. Thank you so much.